Hi, my name is Rasmus Enemark Nielsen. I'm the sound designer for the game Galactic Ultra Nebula. In this video I would like to go through my process of implementing the game audio in Wwise. But first, some information about the game production. The game was made in collaboration with the National Academy of Digital Interactive Entertainment, the DIO, in Denmark. And we were a team of 17 people split between game designers, game director, programmers, artists, sound designer, and music composers. We had 8 weeks to create the game as part of the collaboration with the DIO, and the game was made in the Unity engine. And our team decided to make a high-paced roguelike shooter where the inspiration came from games like Risk of Rain 2, Returnal, Doom, and etc. And so, the way Wwise works in a game engine is by connecting an audio event to specific actions, such as, for instance, the left click triggers the shooting event, or the spacebar triggers the jumping sound effect, and so on. In our game, we can take this as for an example. This is a dash, so whenever you click the shift button for dash, it will also activate the sound. So they correspond to different actions in the game. So what I've done here with a lot of my sound is I've placed it in what Wwise calls a random container, which has a content editor, this one. And inside this content editor, it will play these sounds at random order. I have also specified up here that I want it to vary in pitch, so it's also going to randomly pitch it either minus 100 offset or a maximum of 350 offset. And this kind of helps to avoid repetitive sounding material, and we can kind of hear how this sounds if we just take one sound. This is a dying sound for one of the enemies in the game. So we can kind of hear how it's a little bit different. It's not drastic in any way, but it kind of helps with the repetitive sounding material. Different thing that I have done for a lot of the objects in the game that are supposedly going to move is that I have created them as a 3D spatialization in Wwise. The way this works is that there's this positioning that you can go in and you can click on this relative routing, so that now Wwise will take into consideration the position and the orientation of the sound emitter in the game. So it has a specific point in the game and it's going to act as if it's playing from that point. So now we can have an enemy moving around the player, and it will take into consideration the position and orientation of that sound. And a different thing that I've also done is that I've created an attenuation curve here. We can see here there's, I both have some spread on this one, and I also have just some volume fading. And this little diagram down here kind of shows where the sound is located. If I play this right now, this is a flight sound from one of the enemies. We can kind of hear that we are at least close. We are the closest that we can be to the emitter, so it's going to sound like this. And if we move away from it, it's going to disappear and it's going to come into like so. And it also takes into consideration from behind or from the sides. So this kind of helped to orientate where the different sounds are at, and also helped made it more dynamic. The next thing I want to showcase is that some of the audio elements, they needed what's called an real-time parameter control, or an RTPC value. And this is a value that could be assigned to a created parameter in the Unity or other game engine for that matter. And an example from our game is when the enemies appear, they drop from the sky like meteors, and they become louder as they approach the ground until they collide with the ground and they trigger the enemy's spawn explosion sound. So to create this effect, I made an RTPC value between 0 and 100, where 100 would be the highest point that the meteor was spawned into the level, and 0 would be equal to the ground. A programmer then took the coordination of all the spawned meteors and mapped them to my specified value. And we can see here that I have two parameters that I am attenuating over time. And this is the low pass filter and this is the volume. And so we can just hear how this sounds if I'm playing it now. So this would be from the top point when they immediately spawn into the level. They're going to be at different height intervals, and this is the maximum they can be in. And as we can see, we couldn't really hear much, but now I'm going to simulate how it's going to sound in the game. And when it hits the ground, it's going to activate this spawning sound. So this made it possible for enemies to spawn in at different height intervals and therefore collide with the ground at different times. This kind of helped make the interaction with the enemies and the sound of the collision with the ground more dynamic. I also made an RTPC value for the fire rate of the different gun types in the game. So if I can just find the three guns, they're here. And the reason I did this was in our game, it's possible to get an extremely fast fire rate, which was too difficult for a single sample with a set time. So I therefore had to design 3 different versions for each of the 3 guns, where I decided to split them in time intervals of 8, 16, and 32 bars in my DAW. This way I could make the gun shots shorter and change them to a different interval when the player upgraded their fire rate, and vice versa if they lowered their fire rate. So here in Vice we can see the 3 guns here I've made. The Ancient, the Imperial, the Ripper. These are placed in what's called a switch container in Vice, which kind of works as a gate for different sounds, or in this case random containers that I have in here. That houses the different interval samples, so both 8, 16, and 32 bits. So the way this works is that it has this grouping, which is what I've called it, shooting speeds, and then when I have the fire rate RTPC, then I will decide on where it needs to change from 8 to 16 and to 32. So then it will switch over and use a different sample. So the way this works, if I find the RTPC down here, we can see parameter for switching attack speed sample. If I put this down to just the base of how this gun sounds in the 8th sample, sounds like this. So this is just how the gun sounds when you're just shooting. You could imagine if you're shooting a revolver or something like that, but once it picks up and it becomes fast-paced and the fire rate becomes a bit more extreme, it's tricky if you have this longer released sample, because it's going to overlap the already playing audio. So when the fire rate increases, it changes into a shorter sample. And so now if you're shooting very fast, it's going to better match up with the fire rate. And now the last thing that I want to showcase here in this video is our use of this sidechain compression. Me and the composer wanted there to be an interaction between the sounds of the game and then the music that was playing. We wanted them to interact with each other. And so we created these 3 sidechain compressions. One is soft, the medium, and hard. And so we decided that a lot of the heavy impact sounds, such as gunshots and explosions and different impacts, were going to have a sidechain compression on it, so it would affect the music. And so for people that don't know, sidechain compression works by taking a main signal, the music in this case, and attaching it with a different signal, the SFX sounds. And by setting a volume limit on the compressor, you can duck the main signal when an SFX is being played, and it exceeds that limit that has been specified. Here I have like an ultimate switch, which is a move in the game that you can make, which has 3 different versions, one small explosion, a medium, and then the biggest of them. And this is a rocket that you can shoot in the game. So I'm just gonna try to play around with it now, and kind of showcase how this works. Yes. So hopefully you were able to hear kind of the difference and that it's dipping down. Both me and the composer were very happy with how that sounded, and felt like it did a lot for the immersion of the game, the kind of vibe that we were going for, with it being high paced, and that you have an impact as a player on both the music and the soundscape that is going on around it. So yeah, that's kind of some of the work that I've been doing here in Vice, and yeah, thank you for watching.